On chapter 6.1, which is called A Changing Landscape, we talk about the human effect on Earth. We have living on island Earth. It talks about humans affect regional and global environments through agriculture, development, and industry in ways that have an impact on the quality of Earth's natural resources, including soil, water, and the atmosphere. These three ways are the main effects that people have on Earth. We have agriculture, which is one of the most important inventions in human history. A dependable supply of food that can be stored for later use enables humans to gather in settlements that grew into towns and cities. Inside agriculture, we have a type of agriculture which is called monoculture. It is the practice of clearing large areas of land to plant a single highly productive crop year after year. Monoculture enables effective sowing, tending, and harvesting crops using machines. Then we have development. As a modern society, many people chose to live in cities. Dense human communities produces a lot of wastes. If these wastes are not disposed of properly, they affect air, water, and soil resources. In addition, development consumes farmland and divides natural habitats into fragments. Industrial growth. Human society was transformed by the Industrial Revolution of the 1800s. Today, industry and scientific know-how to provide us with the conveniences of modern life, from comfortable homes and clothes to electronic devices for work and play. Of course, these conveniences require a lot of energy to produce and power. We obtain most of this energy by burning fossil fuels, like coal, oil, and natural gas, and that affects the environment. In addition, industries have traditionally discarded wastes from manufacturing and energy production directly into the air, water, and soil, which greatly affects planet Earth. Renewable and non-renewable resources. A renewable resource can be produced or replaced by a healthy ecosystem. For example, if a tree goes missing, then another tree can grow on its place, and the change won't be as noticeable as if no tree grew at all. But then we have the non-renewable resources. They are non-renewable resources because natural processes cannot replenish them with a reasonable amount of time. Fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas are non-renewable resources formed from buried organic materials over millions of years. When existing deposits are depleted, they are essentially gone forever. Sustainable development provides for human needs while preserving the ecosystem that produces natural resources. Chapter 6.2, which is called Using Resources Wisely, we have Why is soil important and how do we protect it? When you think of natural resources, soil may not be something that comes to mind, but many objects you come into contact with daily rely on soil. From the grain in your breakfast cereal to the wood in your home to the pages of the textbook. Healthy soil supports both agriculture and forestry. Soil erosion is the removal of soil by water or wind. Soil erosion is often worse when land is plowed and left barren between plantings. When soil is badly eroded, organic matter and minerals that make it fertile are often carried away with the soil. In parts of the world with dry climates, a combination of farming, overgrazing, seasonal drought, and climate change can turn farmland into desert. This process is called desertification. Then we have deforestation, which is loss of forests. It can also have a negative effect on the soil. Healthy forests not only provide wood, but also hold soil in place, protect the quality of freshwater supplies, absorb carbon dioxide, and help moderate local climate. It is possible to minimize soil erosion through careful management of both agriculture and forestry. What are the main primary sources of water pollution? Humans depend on fresh water and freshwater ecosystems for goods and services, including drinking water, industry, transportation, energy, and waste disposal. Freshwater sources can be affected by different kinds of pollution. A pollutant is a harmful material that can enter the biosphere. Sometimes pollutants can enter water supplies from a single source, a factory or an oil spill. Pollutants may enter both surface water and underground water supplies that we access with wells. The primary sources of water pollution are industrial and agricultural chemicals, residential sewage, and non-point sources. Industrial and agricultural chemicals. Biological magnification occurs if a pollutant, such as DDT, mercury, or PVC, is picked up by an organism and is not broken down or eliminated from its body. Instead, the pollutant collects in its body tissue. Primary producers pick up a pollutant from the environment. Herbivores that eat those producers concentrate and store the compound. Pollutant concentrations in herbivores may be more than 10 times the level of its producers. When carnivores eat the herbivores, the compound is still further concentrated. Thus, pollutant concentration increases at higher trophic levels. In the highest trophic levels, pollutant concentrations may reach 10 million times their original concentration in the environment. Residential sewage. Sewage isn't poisonous, but it does contain lots of nitrogen and phosphorus. Reasonable amounts of these nutrients can be processed by and absorbed into healthy ecosystems. But large amounts of sewage can stimulate blooms of bacteria and algae that rob water of oxygen. Oxygen-poor areas called dead zones can appear in both fresh and salt water. Raw sewage also contains microorganisms that can spread disease. Atmospheric resources. What are the major forms of air pollution? Common forms of air pollution include smog, acid rain, greenhouse gases, and particulates. Smog. Smog is a gray-brown haze formed by chemical reactions among pollutants released into the air by industrial processes and automobile exhaust. Ozone is one product of these reactions. While ozone high up in the atmosphere helps protect life on Earth from ultraviolet radiation at ground level, ozone and other pollutants threaten the health of people, especially those with respiratory conditions. Acid rain. When we burn fossil fuels in our factories and homes, we release nitrogen and sulfur compounds. When those compounds combine with water vapor in the air, they form nitric and sulfuric acids. These airborne acids can drift for many kilometers before they fall as acid rain. Acidic water vapor can also affect ecosystems as fog or snow. In some areas, acid rain kills plants by damaging their leaves and changing the chemistry of soils and surface water. Greenhouse gases. Burning fossil fuels and forests releases stored carbon into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas. Agricultural practices from raising cattle to farming rice release methane, another greenhouse gas. Although some greenhouse gases are necessary, when excess greenhouse gases accumulate in the atmosphere, they contribute to global warming and climate change. Particulates. Particulates are microscopic particles of ash and dust released by certain industrial processes and certain kinds of diesel engines. Very small particulates can pass through the nose and mouth and enter the lungs, where they can cause serious health problems. Chapter 6.3. It's called Biodiversity. Why is biodiversity important? Biological diversity, or biodiversity, is the total of all the genetically-based variation in all organisms in the biosphere. Types of biodiversity. Biodiversity exists on 3 levels: ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. Ecosystem diversity refers to the variety of habitats, communities, and ecological processes in the biosphere. The number of different species in the biosphere or in a particular area is called species diversity. And genetic diversity can refer to the sum total of all different forms of genetic information carried by a particular species or by all organisms on Earth. Biodiversity benefits to society include contributions to medicine and agriculture, and the provision of ecosystem goods and services. Biodiversity in medicine. The chemicals in wild species are used to treat diseases like depression and cancer. These plant compounds are assembled according to instructions coded in genes, so the genetic information carried by diverse species is like a natural library from which we have a great deal to learn. Biodiversity in agriculture. Genetic diversity is also important in agriculture. Most crop plants have wild relatives like the potatoes. These wild plants may carry genes we can use, through plant breeding or genetic engineering, to transfer disease or pest resistance, or other useful traits to crop plants. Biodiversity and ecosystem services. The number and variety of species in an ecosystem can influence the ecosystem's stability, productivity, and value to humans. Sometimes the presence or absence of a single keystone species can completely change the nature of life in an ecosystem. Also, healthy and diverse ecosystems play a vital role in maintaining soil, water, and air quality. Threats to biodiversity. What are the most significant threats to biodiversity? Humans reduce biodiversity by altering habitats, hunting, introducing invasive species, releasing pollution into food webs, and contributing to climate change. Conserving biodiversity. To conserve biodiversity, we must protect individual species, preserve habitats and ecosystems, and make certain that human neighbors of protected areas benefit from participating in conservation efforts. An ecological hotspot is a place where significant numbers of species and habitats are in immediate danger of extinction. By identifying these areas, ecologists hope that scientists and governments can better target their efforts to save as many species as possible. Chapter 6.4 Meeting Ecological Challenges. On Chapter 6.4, we have ecological footprints. How does the average ecological footprint in America compare to the world's average? First, we need to understand what is an ecological footprint. The ecological footprint describes the total area of functioning land and water ecosystems needed to both provide the resources an individual or population uses and to absorb and make harmless the wastes that individual or population generates.